And it's funny because I have heard people say that the tax return is free money. I'm like,
It's
no, it
not
is
free.
not.
It's your money.
It's always been your money. And it is not free money. That term is so funny to me because, like, why would you think you earned it?
Right. Why
First
would
of all,
you
you
think the
earned
government?
it.
Why would you think the government is giving you free
No
money?
way. Absolutely not. Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it. Good morning. How you doing, babe?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Back at it.
Yes.
Tag team, back again.
You look good today.
So do you.
Thank you. We got a little snazzy today, but anyway, we're going to talk about some the subject of money that folks hate to discuss.
I mean, it's that time of year.
Yeah.
So whether you like to discuss it or not, it's tax season, and it might be too late to make changes right now, but it is time to think about, filing, as well as, maybe what you do differently in 2025 for 2026 taxes.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't ever really think it's too early to have a tax conversation because there's a lot that I think you can adjust and change throughout the year that'll make it either easier or owing less if you prepare well, things like that. So, yeah, let's get into it.
I think what's funny is, I know growing up, in Detroit, in the city, people like look forward to tax season. They're like, man, I'm getting my tax return. And we all joke about it, especially in the black community, like, getting tax returns.
Yeah.
And the older we got and the more informed we became, I was like, man, I don't want a tax return.
Yeah.
I want to break even. I don't want to owe, and I don't want to get money back.
Right.
And people are like, well, why don't you want a tax return?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes, I think, some education, and hopefully we can tackle some of that, because if you don't get a tax return, that means you got your money throughout the year.
That's right. And it's funny because I have heard people say that the tax return is free money. I'm like, no, it is
free.
not.
It's your money.
It's always been your money. And it is not free money. That term is so funny to me because, like, why would you think you earned it?
Right. Why
First
would
of all,
you think the
earned
government?
it.
Why would you think the government is giving you free money?
No way. Absolutely not. So I think, though, I will say, like, it's exciting to get money, like extra money above and beyond the paycheck that you're not necessarily expecting them, but it's kind of a surprise when you actually do your taxes and you're like, okay, I know how much it is. And that's exciting.
Look,
but
the only surprise I look for at tax time is that it doesn't say, remit this amount to the government. That is what I'm looking for. I do not want to pay.
But we have owed taxes before.
I know. Well, we've owed taxes a lot of years.
No, well.
It's been enough years that
a handful.
It leaves in indelible print
on
my mind that
it does.
I don't want to send the government a
right.
check.
It was funny though. So you do the girls' taxes, or you have done the girls' taxes, and this year, our oldest decided that she was going to do her taxes herself. She was like, I'm not waiting on Dad. She was like, Dad talked too much during our consultation,
You taking my thunder away. That's for me to talk about later.
Oh.
Well,
but
I mean, we're here now, so.
We here now, so proceed.
Yeah, but no, that's time to connect with the kids as well.
She didn't want to connect with you.
Well,
she wanted her taxes done.
You know what? Well, okay, your taxes done. I hope you got all you can get back. So, her situation is different. She gets more of a refund than we do, but
no. But listen, this is what's funny. So she sent a text message and she said, "Welp, this is the result of my taxes." And she had $1 that she was supposed to get back from the federal taxes. And I just cracked up laughing. I was like, $1. And then she, because of some things in her state, she was able to deduct some other things, and so she got $1,000 back. But when I saw that come through, I was like, oh, does she regret her decision not using that?
All I said was bravo. Good job. $1 back. That means you getting your money every two
Well,
weeks.
well, and I think that's. I will say, I think it's hard to get that daggone close. Like
I
when I
know.
first saw it, I was like, "Is this real?" Like, and we had one. I remember some years back,
$5.
$5 back. It was. So, I was like, "Did we really do that?
Yeah,
Like,
$5.
who does that?"
But I think we're jumping all over the place right now. And with the impending tax deadline date of April 15th coming, now is the time to make sure you get all your ducks in a row.
Right.
Like me, they start, companies start sending, tax documents like in January. And what I do is I just get those documents as they come in the mail. We have a tax planner that we get from our CPA, and I just start putting all those envelopes or documents all in one, so I have a centralized place where all my documents are stored, because the one thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to file late unless you have an extension that you've requested. And you want to just make sure you have some level of organization. And for me, that is how I help organize our stuff, because even, our youngest daughter, she worked last summer and she was like, I don't know what my W-2 is. I was like, don't worry, I have it. It's in the tax file that I take everybody's documents as they come. Sometimes I don't even tell them, oh, you got such and such, or Ericka, you got all this 1099, or you got this, or you, whatever. I'm just like putting the documents in the tax file, and then people ask later, like, where's my stuff? Oh, it's right here.
Yeah, we always, because you do that, we always know where to go. Like, you're pretty organized in that way, and that's not the role that I take, and I appreciate that you do that. And the role that I take is, one, tracking all of our expenses on a routine basis, because there are things that we need to deduct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Home use, office space, that kind of thing, and being able to have all of that easily available. And so we have our roles, and I love that. That makes it easy, because then I also know where to go. Like
Yep.
the tax folder itself, I also know where to go. And then the
You go
great,
to the in-house CPA
uh,
and say, Mr. CPA, I was looking for XYZ. I say, hold on, I need you to make an appointment,
oh my gosh.
and then we can discuss this.
Right, because your youngest needed to get an appointment with you. And then on top of that, I really feel like it's so helpful that our CPA actually gives us a document,
A
that a
planner.
questionnaire of,
Yeah.
did this happen, did this change, blah blah blah, and it goes through, and it forces us to think about, oh yes, we need to get that document, or I need to print this off, or here's the one thing that's easy to forget is the auto registrations, right? And so all of these things that we can deduct, so that we can basically itemize our deductions instead of taking the standard deduction. And we've always typically been above the standard deduction, so we'll get a chance to maximize on, saving money on our taxes. And so just being organized helps you save money, because if you forget any one of these deductions, then that's lost money.
Yeah. So I think as we're talking about this, like being organized, that's the first step. And I think we both, like you said, play a role. Me getting the documents together, you tracking things throughout the year, and even having a CPA
Yeah.
that helps us to be organized with that tax planner.
Yeah.
Because we'll go back and we'll go line by line. It's like,
Right.
oh, we need to go and print this document off, because we were dropping our taxes off, and there were a few things that we needed to pull that we hadn't either received a statement, or we had needed to log into an account and get the electronic copy and print it off.
Because let's
So
be honest, we're not going to remember all this stuff.
yeah,
We're
and
not going to remember all this.
I think that's the great part about it, is like that will help you from being late in filing your taxes. One, being organized,
Yeah.
and these are just a few components of organization that we're talking about, but that'll help in the end ensure that you get the maximum return, especially if you, as you said, Ericka, are filing above the standard deduction. If you have enough expenses that are itemized, that's what we all want to try and do, is pay as little tax as possible, and itemizing deductions. If you can surpass the I think it's $30,000 standard deduction, that's how you begin to benefit. So
So let me ask this question. because you're the in-house CPA for the girls.
True.
Do you feel like you could do that for us?
Um, Possibly,
Oh, okay. I'm
but
gonna say absolutely not. I wouldn't. I
possibly,
don't trust myself.
I would say this. I would rather have our CPA because our situation is more complex than the girls. I'm filing a 1040 EZ for
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
I'm using one of the online tax software products that allow them to file for free because of
yeah.
their situation, their incomes, and it just prompts and walks us through.
Hmm.
And I take all that information, I apply it to myself, and I tell them sometimes, like when we talk about consulting with dad, I sometimes tell them, oh, well, you can do this, but me and mom can't do this. And in the future, your situation might change.
Did you
So
have
it's
a
like,
consultation with Olivia this year?
I did. I explained to her as we were going along
She was
some of the,
probably more interested.
yeah, well, Faith is like a bottom line kind of person.
Yes, she was like, I don't want to know all the details. Just tell me what the result is.
She's like, let's get to the bottom line. And Olivia sometimes is more astute in knowing some of the details and wants to know some of the details, but that's okay because I just want them both to be informed.
Hmm.
And I think as a parent and as, a tax filer, I just want to maximize our ability to reduce our tax, reduce our adjusted gross income so that we can ensure that we reap the benefit of our
Yeah,
hard work
yeah.
and that the government isn't taking more from us from a tax perspective.
I just realized I forgot to send them something on our taxes.
Well, good thing is it's never too late.
So, as a self-employed person, I can add dollars to my SEP
Yep,
IRA, self-employed
that's right.
plan, and that is sure we have documentation somewhere, but typically what happens is I let them know what exactly I put in there
Right.
in during the year. And so I realized in order for it to be accurate, I let them know specifically what that number is, and I got to let them know what that number is because
What's the
again
importance of that?
it reduces our taxes. It
And
reduces our
like
taxes.
I'm saying the importance of it, like why does it reduce our taxes? Because it's like
It's like a 401k. And so
exactly.
if and your company will give you a W-2 that shows your actual dollars that you need to be taxed on after you put money into your 401k, but as a self-employed person, I don't actually have that.
Right.
So,
And that's the point I was making is that
yeah.
as a self-employed person, when you have a SEP, you can actually put money into the SEP, which acts like a 401k.
Yeah.
And that money reduces your income and
Hmm.
takes your adjusted gross income down. And by taking your adjusted gross income down, that's how you pay less
And you
taxes.
can do a SEP and a 401k, and yeah, so the thing is that we're trying to maximize on all of our retirement dollars and reduce our taxes. So I always try and give the most to my SEP IRA so that we're reducing taxes. I prioritize that over income,
Yeah.
honestly.
I think you asked an important question. You said, do I think I could do for us what I do for the kids? And naturally, I think I can do a lot of things.
Listen,
But
I'm glad you said it.
but I know sometimes when there may be a knowledge gap and you need to seek out the advice of a professional. And
Yeah.
I think that's what people need to be aware of because we have friends that do their own taxes. They use different tax filing softwares because they don't want to pay a fee for a professional to do their taxes. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I think what I would tell people is to know when to call in the pros.
Yeah.
And I think about like early on, the early years, I think I did. Did I ever do our taxes?
No, because
I
we
know.
actually had your cousin do taxes one time for us. We had a different person when we were living in Arizona
Yeah, we had
because the
different
very first
tax.
year that we got married,
Your employer
my
paid.
employer paid
Yeah.
for it because we moved, and so we had extra schedules on the
We
taxes.
had
And then
multiple states.
from there, we just kept doing it.
Yeah. And I think about, well, she said my cousin, he was a tax professional.
Yeah.
He was
But even that was a little stressful for us because I do remember that it took hours to
because he
ensure that
didn't
we
have the
had.
history.
Yeah, he didn't have a history, and then we had to update him. We tried it once, and we don't think it was erroneous. There was no errors there, but I do think that there's a process that
Yeah.
that a CPA or a registered advisor will actually like, go through, and I want to let them go through that.
Yeah, my cousin was an enrolled agent, which is the
Yeah.
equivalent of a CPA. It's through the
Hmm.
IRS, and we utilized him. Um, but then we had a CPA, and we used that same CPA
Hmm.
for years. And I think the cool thing about having a professional that you engage with year after year is that they have reference points because they would
Right,
send
from the
us
previous year.
they send us a completed tax return. It has all of our information. It shows current year and previous year. And sometimes when they send us that planner, I think previously it may have had some of the previous year's
It does.
information
It does.
listed so you could
Hmm.
see, you could see where you filled things in the previous year so
Right.
you knew this is where it was a guide. And I
Right.
think
It's a
that's
guide.
important.
Yeah. So it had our previous years. But the other thing is I'm able to write on there or say, this is the same as last year.
Yeah.
We've been living in our same house for all these years. Our square footage has not changed.
Yep.
so so when I'm writing off stuff for the home business, it, those some of those stats around the home itself and what I can the percentage that I can write off has not changed. The amounts potentially have changed in terms of what I can deduct.
Yeah. And I think, anybody who's listening to this, whether you're on YouTube, at For Better and Worth, or if you're on one of the podcast platforms, you've got to ask yourself the question, like, when should we call a professional? And I think for us, like, we knew that having a professional and the investment that we were going to pay them to do our taxes was going to benefit us greater than us trying to save, a few $100s. And so I think our tax situation has been complex enough over the years, living in multiple states, from corporate employment and self-employment, to, LLCs, and, now you have a business, you get, uh, K1
Hmm.
statements and things like that. You have to know when to call in the pros, because the more complex it gets,
Yeah.
you need someone who, one, stays relevant and up to date on the tax code, because the
Hmm.
tax code, something changes almost every year. And I can't say that I'm up to date on tax
Oh, come
codes
on.
and
And that
changes.
is precisely the reason why I
Yes.
know I do not want to take on doing our taxes, because the more complicated it is, the more
Yep.
schedules you have, right? So we have
The
business
easier it is to
schedules.
forget something.
Right. And so you have all these different schedules, or it changes if you
Yep.
moved, if you know what I mean, if your dependent is doing this, that, and the other. All of these things could be reasons to either forget something or miscalculate or what have you. And I just need checks and balances. And so when they put it all together, we do review it. We review it. And there have been times when I'm like, this number isn't
We've caught
accurate.
errors.
Yeah,
Yep.
this number
That's
isn't
interesting.
accurate. Or it was put in the wrong spot. That's kind of more rare. Typically it's something like what I just did this year, which is forgot the SEP number, because that reduces the. So when they say, okay, this is
It's
how
your
much
completed return.
this your completed return, this is how much you're getting back, or this is how much you owe. That number changes when I give them the appropriate number for my SEP. So those are I don't want to trust the detail. Like I don't think that I have that level of detail to remember all the things. And I remember, you remember when we went to that one lady, cuz there's been a couple times,
Don't
twice.
don't remind me.
Yeah. There's been two times here where we went to someone else
It
just
was
to.
terrible.
Well,
I mean,
okay, I'm gonna say one
the
person
tax.
wasn't terrible. The other person, it was a challenge because one, they charged us two or three times what the guy that we just have continued to use, what he charges,
Yes.
and for not better service. Like that was the one time that we had inaccuracies on our return, and I was like, I don't understand this. Why do these numbers keep getting mistaken? And then I'm paying this exorbitant fee. And the reason is because we thought that the person that we were actually dealing with was doing the taxes. She was handing that off to someone else. That is a problem. And I think for a lot of people, the biggest thing for them to do is to find somebody new, because tax season comes and they want their return done quickly. You got to find somebody new in the off season. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I think when you talk professionals, I think you have to think about two things. because what we were looking for wasn't just someone to be a tax preparer.
Mm-hmm.
Because
At that time, yeah.
there's two types of professionals if you're going to engage a professional. And I think people need to be aware of that. There are tax preparers,
Yeah.
people who will take all your information and prepare your
And
taxes.
you can go to H&R Block for that.
Or you can go to a myriad of
Yes.
people
Yes.
to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you give them the information and they will give you a prepared return back. And to your point, in that case, you still need to review the return before you sign off on it to make sure that there is not something that's missing. Like, look at the numbers and make sure they make sense before you say, I approve this and go ahead and file.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are professionals that I say not only prepare your taxes, but they consult with you and they provide accounting services and consultancy to ensure that you're maximizing every bit of the tax code. And
Yeah.
that's slightly different. You know, and so when you're looking for a professional, you need to make sure you're asking the right questions like, well, do you just prepare taxes? Or if I have questions, or if I need to meet with you during the year to do tax planning.
And to be clear, sometimes they charge for that.
Right. And you have to understand that you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a consultancy like that, you know, you have to pay consultants and people for their knowledge.
I think the reason we were upset with that lady is because we came in for a consulting appointment,
Mm-hmm.
and I promised we shot the breeze for about 45 minutes.
And she charged us for
And
that.
she charged us for the entire hour. And I was just looking like, hold on. And it was literal catching up, having
Yeah.
chuckles, laugh, hoo-ha, all this.
Getting
and
to know
then
each other.
and then really 15 minutes of the consultancy. And I'm not saying that the thing is that I don't believe we knew we'd be charged for that.
Right.
And she charged the same amount as if they were preparing our taxes. I just thought all of it, one, she should have said it ahead of time, and two, she should have kept us on target because that's our money she's wasting.
Well, you know what? You know what you're talking about? Setting expectations.
Yeah.
Like, if a professional sets expectations with you, then you go in, you know what to expect. But
Yeah.
you know, that's some things just from our experience when we talk about professionals, and I believe in tax professionals because they know
They know what
a
they're doing.
whole lot more than we do. So.
And I would say I think tax professionals appreciate this. If you want to seek someone out, understand if they're the right fit for you, or get some assistance, the consultant side, like how can I reduce my taxes, those types of questions, is best done between May 15th
Right.
and January 15th.
Yeah. Don't do that in tax season.
Don't do it in, don't think. See, here's the thing. Don't assume you can do it in tax
Yeah, no
season
way.
because likely you're not going to get the same quality of service because they are overwhelmed. They are working 20 hours a day. Okay. So, or their team, they're busy. They're just trying to get things out because there is a deadline. And so my recommendation is always to set an appointment with people. If you're looking to find somebody, do it in the off season. They will appreciate that, and I think you're going to get better service.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, and I personally don't think that in tax season is the time to make changes or consult.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make changes, but they won't be effective until the following year.
Yeah.
And it's better to do it early and make those changes than to do it late.
Yeah.
But it's best if you are after May 15th, you know, make your adjustments then, and those will go into the following year as well.
Yeah.
Because people don't think about that. I remember one year we talk about getting a zero return, right? And people say, well, why do you want a zero return? And I'm a firm believer that people live off their biweekly pay. And the higher your biweekly pay is, the better off you typically can live if you're living within your means and based on your income. And if you're not getting a tax return, that means you're getting more money every 2 weeks. And I personally would rather get more money every 2 weeks than to get a lump sum once a year, even though some people say, well, this is how I can save. It's their built-in discipline, but I'd rather exert discipline myself
Yeah.
and save throughout the year and get the interest on my money, my own money, than a lot of government to get the interest on my money.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you have to just, exert some discipline and do those things. And what I was going to say is we got a refund 1 year, federal and state, and we calculated how much we had overpaid.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we made adjustments on like our W-4s and stuff like that so that we could ensure that we weren't getting
Yeah.
returns. And 1 year we owed.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about that adjustment because I think it's important for us to help folks understand what it looks like to make those adjustments.
Yes.
Um, so I typically will tell people you can go to irs.gov withholding calculator and put in your numbers ideally at the end of the year, like in December, when you know how much you got paid this year and all the things, you're pretty clear on your numbers because the year is almost over. And then see if one, you're potentially getting a refund. Here's why this is important because let's say you get a $2,400, you're projected to get a $2,400 refund. Come January 1st, you can change whatever the withholding calculator will spit out what you should change on your payroll. Essentially, when you go back to the job and you say, "Hey, change my withholdings to this."
Number of withholdings.
Right. The number of exemptions that you claim and all that. It'll tell you what to do in order to break even so that you can get that $200 back into your paycheck per month. Yep. And so you go back to your employer and you change this with payroll in January and you get the maximum amount because you started immediately in January. But the other thing is we've had some of our tax professionals actually say you can change it by this yourself. Like the tax person will actually tell you without you having to go do the calculator.
Yeah. Or even when we owed, we even broke it down and said, this is what we owed.
Yeah.
And we broke it down by 12 months.
Yes.
And so then I went to my employer, you went to your employer when you were employed then, and we would say, hey, I want to have this much additionally taken out of my pay.
Right. Because you can do a dollar amount.
Right. So it was like, I think I put like $50 a paycheck to have that taken out. So at the end of the year, we didn't have to write a check for that $1,200. I'd rather pay it, little by little than to pay in one lump sum.
And if you don't happen to do this in December, because that's very likely, no one is thinking about this in December. But if you say, all right, well,
it's like ho time then.
Ain't nobody thinking about it, right? But if you do it right after tax season, you still have 8 months, let's say, right? So if you have 8 months from May to December, change your withholdings, but do it by 8 months maybe.
Yeah.
So instead of dividing it by 12 months, your change is by 8 months. And so you can put a dollar amount on there for them to take out or change your withholdings just for the rest of the year. You can change your withholdings anytime. You can do that. And I think people don't, it's extra effort, but it's worth it. And so just do that.
The pain feels less when it's a bite at a time versus when it's a whole, a water hose gulp is different than a fire hose gulp.
Right. And I think if you owe, you will appreciate not owing the following year. So I think in that regards, that makes it worth it.
Look, and that's why when we got $5 back 1 year, we were like, high five.
Yeah, but
success.
Let me just say, yes. Like, I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I was like, that's pretty cool.
I don't know how we did it, but that was pretty hard.
It is kind of sad to not get a single thing back. And then when we owe, oh my gosh. Now, and we didn't owe just $10. We owed a couple G's. And I was like, what did we do wrong? What happened?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, fortunately, we have an emergency fund, we have savings, we have all of that. And so when the tax bill comes, it's not like, oh man, this is an emergency to pay the taxes because you don't want to owe the government.
Right.
And not pay them on
That's
time.
right.
You want to get that off your books because they will come and they will get their money.
Right. And so I think that's a really good point too. As a self-employed person, I have to do estimated taxes. And so when I'm putting that aside or I'm paying it on a quarterly basis and all of that, I can adjust those amounts when necessary. And I think that first of all, anybody can do estimated taxes. You don't have to be self-employed for that. You can set up your account with the IRS, and if you think that you're going to owe, you can just go ahead and do that without looking at your payroll. You actually can. But um, we set that aside on a monthly basis so that we are always prepared. So, for instance, if we actually did owe money this year, we have money set aside for taxes in case we owe. I don't think that we will, but you
We'll
can
be
look
okay.
at the one of the things that I really like about that our tax professional does is he compares year to year. And so when we look at that comparison, we can see what changed dramatically that affected our taxes if we see a big difference. So if the income was a big difference, or if the expenses or deductions were a big difference, or what have you, like we'll be able to see what changed. And I think that's a really good practice when you're reviewing at the end of it. If there's some changes needed to be made, you'll know exactly where to go to figure out what happened.
As I'm sitting here listening, I feel my For Better and Worth podcast voice coming on.
Uh
Like,
oh.
this is simply our opinions. We are not professionals.
No.
This is not advice. This is only us telling you what our experience has been when it
Yeah.
comes to taxes. And we encourage you to go out and seek the advice of professionals
Yes.
on your own to ensure that your tax situation is appropriately
The
managed and
disclaimer.
taken care of.
The disclaimer here.
So, the For Better and Worth show is not a tax professional, paid professional show.
Yeah.
So, this is simply our experience that we're
Mm-hmm.
sharing with you, and we hope that you go out and increase your learning
Yeah.
as it relates to taxes, because there's a lot of ways that you can manage your own personal tax burden, tax debt. Because one thing is not going away is taxes.
Yeah.
And so if you can find ways to reduce your own personal tax load and burden, you're going to be winning.
Yes.
And that's what we want. We want to see you win.
Yep.
So there's my disclaimer.
So I think we should get into how to make it worth it. I thought about this. We started off talking about being organized, and I think that a lot of people fear tax season. They're concerned if they don't think they're going to get a refund, or if they're worried
They're
about
trying to hold
owing.
off.
And I would say the more organized you are, you sit in a seat of power, control, awareness over your own finances. So I would say, in order to make it worth it, get organized. Start today. Even if you didn't do it for this tax season, you weren't super organized. From now forward, you can be more organized. You can find the ways that will help you to reduce the stress come January of next year.
Hmm.
So hopefully that helps you to be in control of your outcomes, because you do have ways to be in, hopefully all the ways that we just discussed. So how would you make it worth it, babe?
I think being organized is a great one that you highlight. And I think my Make It Worth It actually builds off of that. I'll say take this tax year and see what the outcome is. See if the outcome was a refund, or see if the outcome was you owed. And whatever that outcome is, create a plan to change that situation one way or the other. If it's a refund, then go change your deductions through your employer, change your exemptions so you can capture those funds every 2 weeks in your payroll. And if it's a you have to pay, if you have to pay the government, do the same thing. Every 2 weeks, change your tax situation so that you have a small portion taken out of your payroll versus a large tax bill at the end of the year. Because in either of those situations, I think you will come out much happier either getting money every 2 weeks or not owing money to
Yeah.
the government through one big lump sum payment.
Right.
It's the classic, how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And I'd rather you, instead of having a big tax bill at the end of the year, take one bite at a time and chop that elephant down over the course of the year.
I just thought of this, and we didn't say it earlier, and I think it warrants being said. If you owe, the government is real good about taking payments, and I would
That's true.
prioritize paying the government so you don't owe in the following year adjusting those, I would prioritize that debt. I honestly would. And so they will take payments. If you owe $2,400, you can pay $200 a month until the next year. You just need to make sure that you don't owe the following year and that this doesn't become a pattern. And so
make arrangements. But
you can make arrangements, but I think get them out of your pocket. Get the government out your pocket, and make sure that you have a game plan so that this is a higher priority, because it just never feels good. It never feels good to owe the government. And at the time of this recording, we don't know what the result of our taxes are yet. And so I'll
feel
be
confident that whatever it is, we're going to be fine.
sure. But you know what? It never feels good if you owe. So I'll be honest and say, like,
We're
I
gonna take
hope we
our
don't.
we're gonna take our own advice, whatever the case is.
Yes, we
So,
will. We actually will. So
Right. Well, this was a good conversation. Keep tuning in, and until next time,
we're out.
thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on forbetterandworth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.